Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with Anglo-Hispanic writer Janelle Meraz. She is an independent author of 10 books and a play. Several of them have won awards because she was born and raised about 7 miles outside of the Fort Sill Indian Reservation in Oklahoma. Many of her stories have their foundation in her Hispanic family's friendships with indigenous people from various tribes. She now lives in Washington State near her family. Enjoy this interview. I'm looking forward to peeling back the layers of your life as a writer. And to begin this process, I want to ask, the last 3.5 years living through this pandemic's been quite a thing. How did you get through it and how did it change you?
Oh, boy, did it change me. For one thing, I could not afford to get COVID. And it was rampant around here. I'm not well enough to get that on top of what I've already got. So I decided I was going to really shelter in. So I started planning, and I decided my first novel, A Three Turtle Summer, that I would rewrite it and just start sending it out to agents, as soon as COVID slowed down. And so I spent a lot of time doing that. And then I got into Instagram, which my publisher thought that if I got on Instagram, my whole world would change, what a sales pitch. Anyway, so I got on Instagram. I'm not graphic. Oh, Joe, I've struggled with that, but I figured it out, and now I'm hooked on it. And now I've got a huge Instagram site. You'll have to check it out someday. I've got all of my books on there, and stories, and my past artwork, and all kinds of stuff. So that I kept busy. I did short stories, and the time just flew by, really.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think, I noticed that a lot of time just kind of melted. It's hard to keep up with all of the years that went through, but that sounds great. I mean, and especially being a writer, it's already a solitary act. So what I want to do is to get kind of to the essence of you. And I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day. And one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
I would say I married up. That's how I make my living as a writer, because my husband was a banker. Well, he came in one day and I told him, I said, "I've decided I want to write a novel." And this was A Three Turtle Summer. And without even blinking, he said, "That's great. We're going to need the tax deduction." And that has been my job throughout our marriage. I recently lost him, but after 61 years of marriage, actually over 61 years of marriage. But throughout our marriage, I always thought of myself as somebody's tax deduction. So I was free to go ahead and write what I wanted to, when I wanted to. And I published 10 books. I published a little bit more. I've taken some off that were, I think, a little bit too personal. I did a motivational book on how to survive arthritis. And I named it How to Live on a Rocky Beach, because the kids used to wear a T-shirt that said, "Life is a beach." And yeah. I wanted to write beneath it, "Yes, but some beaches have rocks." And so anyway, so I did that. That's now off the market. And I did some children's stories. And I just was free all of a sudden, but to do whatever I wanted to. So it really, it was a godsend for me, because my body is sometimes going a lot slower than my brain. So I really needed, with all the wonderful stuff we've got now with the internet and all of this research, I don't have to worry about how I'm going to get to the library, and who's going to pick me up, and so I've made it work for me.
That's wonderful. So what did you want to be when you were in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Well, when I was in the second grade, my cousin and I bought a Dick Tracy press kit, and we started putting out a neighborhood newspaper. Now, this is a neighborhood like 4 houses, like we would call it a cul-de-sac nowadays, but it wasn't really on a cul-de-sac. And we spent all day doing that and several days doing that. Nobody bought. In fact, we got into a lot of trouble because we told a lot of the secrets in the neighborhood. But that's what I wanted to do then. When I got to be, that's the one that stuck with me, Joe. When I was in the third grade, I wanted to be a dancer, and I did. I took dance lessons, ballet lessons, tap lessons, and I did actually was able to be in a troupe when I was in high school, a ballet and tap troupe here on the West Coast. But my arthritis started hitting me, so I had to, back off. So, but that, so I really, I kind of have moved my careers going with my arthritis. The arthritis started in the feet, so I moved up and did something else. And, I had a radio show for a while. I moved up into these other things as I needed to. But I always found a way to keep busy.
So talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised and how these seeds of becoming a writer and growing into who you are today, how did all that happen?
Well, I was born and raised in Lawton, Oklahoma, which is right outside the Fort Sill Indian Reservation, where they kept Geronimo. And as a child, I thrived on the environment. I mean, Oklahoma, no offense, Oklahoma, but let's face it, you're full of snakes and turtles and bugs and other creepy crawly stuff, and I loved it. And I had the local museum of the Indians there at Fort Sill. It used to be the jail when the reservation was young, and so they made a museum out of it. And I was just a combination of all of that, and I got my first library card. And my cousin took me. I didn't even know I could get a library card when I was in the second grade. He was probably in the fourth by then. So I went to the library and I saw all these books. Joe, I'd never seen them before. My mother didn't take me places like that. I had never seen one. So I asked the lady, I said, could I get a library card? She said, sure. And she started filling it out, just what's your name, blah, blah. And I said, can I take the books home? You sure can. How many can I take home? She said, as many as you want. So I really would. My cousin and I would go to the library and we would load up on books. And then we would have to walk home 3.5 miles because we were so anxious to get to the library that we spent our dime to get to the library. And so when we went to go home, we had no money to ride the bus. So we had to walk. It would have been better, smarter to do it the opposite way. But of course, we were just so anxious to get there. And I read all the time for lots of reasons. In my family, I just had some issues. My family was having issues. And so I could just sit down and read a book and everybody could go do what they're going to do around me. And I would just sit there and read till it was time to go to bed.
Wow, that's wonderful. What was the first book that you really read that captivated you, that you loved and really made you either want to read more or write?
I don't remember the first one, but I can tell you that I used to go into the library and I would go anything to do with a horse. I think lots of girls, when they're young, they like the idea of horses. I read all the books on horses, Black Beauty and all of them. I don't remember the first title. And then on the other side of the library was where they had all the books about the Native Americans that were there at on the reservation. There were books on how to speak Comanche. I would always check out. I could never figure it out, Joe, but I couldn't resist it. I would get all these books on how to read Comanche and Kiowa and about the beaded costumes, everything. I was just enthralled by it. And so in I don't remember what year it was. We were in Alaska, and somebody said, "We need you to be a docent at this." Oh, it's a huge museum. It's fabulous. And so I started being a docent, and of course, all my knowledge is building during all this time. Indigenous peoples in Alaska, New Jersey, even everywhere. As we traveled with the Army, I was able to just soak in everything I could. And that's how it all started.
So what was the first story that you wrote where you were like, this makes sense, this is my life, this is something I want to pursue, or it just made you feel good? What was that first story for you?
I started right out with A Three Turtle Summer, which turned out to be 93,000 words. And I just fell into it and I started writing. And well, it started at first, I wanted to write a novel and I didn't have any idea how to start. I'd never had a class in it. I had English in college, but they don't teach you how to write a novel, at least not here in Washington State. So I just struggled. I really struggled. And then one day I thought, why am I doing this? I've got all these characters that I'm living around. My mother had four sisters and she had three brothers, and we're Hispanic, and I'm part Hispanic. And I said, and they were such characters. They were wonderful. They were funny. They were lively. They loved to dance. They did everything. And so I thought, I'll just write about them. So I sent each of them a letter and I said, hey, I want to write this book. Would it be okay if I used you in my book? And they all wrote back one called and said, sure, because Joe, they thought I'd never finish it. Sure, let the kid do whatever she wants. I was always so quiet. I think they thought I was some type of a retard or something. Anyway, she'll never finish it. Just say yes. And so I got all these letters back. And then the book was an award winner. So for right out of the gate, I got a lot of encouragement.
That's wonderful. So who's been a hero for you in your life?
I think all my heroes have been mostly people in books. I love books about first ladies and presidents and other historical people. But if I had to pick a live person, I would pick my husband because he was very, very intelligent. And he just had like an X-ray vision. Like if you do this, then all this is going to happen later. And he would just point everything out to me. And he has a systematic way of thinking that really impressed me, and very kind and very giving, and really always willing to help. So I think in person it would have to be my husband.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Oh, nobody's ever asked me that. Let's see, who would it like to be? Probably another writer.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one. I have so many. I'm still an avid reader. I just absolutely, I love my books. And I've got stacks and stacks of them around. I've stacks of them waiting. Some in the living room, some in the bedroom. They're all over the place. So if I get in the kitchen, cooking something, I can pick up a book and read it while something boils. It's just a big thing with me. But I wish I had a better answer for you.
No, that was a great answer. I love that answer. So what is the motivation for you every day to create these stories? The beauty of a writer is you get to create worlds for people, and you get to create an escapism. What is that motivation for you every day to construct these stories and to ultimately be who you are?
The motivation I have is to write the stories that are in my head. And I have a lot of stories running around in my head, a couple of novels back there somewhere. I was just thinking about that today. But if I don't write, I become so cranky and nobody can live with me. And so it's like I have to write because I have to get these stories out. I'm 79 years old, Joe. I keep thinking, if I keep messing around, I might die before one of these stories is finished. I have to keep going.
Yeah.
And so I write a lot. I work, over 6 days a week. I have dinner with the family once or twice a week, and usually they go, home really early because they have to work. And then I work in the morning, I work in the noon, I work at night. I get up. I was up at 4:00 this morning. So I mean, I just have a passion for it. But I have a passion for a lot of things, Joe. I really do. I mean, it's just when I was a kid, I was in the rocks, and then I was in the turtles, and then we went to the ocean once, and I became a collector of seashells, and then plants, and then all kinds of, I'm just all in for anything I do until I learn all I want to know about it. And then once I learned, like for instance, I wanted to learn how to knit. Once I understood how those needles went through and how that worked, then I was done. That was all I wanted to know. I moved on to the next thing, which happened to be organic gardening. But anyway, uh, probably nobody else could stand me except my husband for very long because I always had, let's do this. And they'd look at me like, oh, really? We want to stay home and watch the football game.
So what's been the best advice that you've ever gotten in life?
The best advice that I've ever gotten is to not take the advice that I've gotten. I mean, people always thought that I was a dummy. I mean, when I was at elementary school, the teacher sent home a little letter. What grades do you expect, Janelle to get? What are you expecting? And mom wrote back and said, oh, I'd be happy if she got C's. Really? That's all my mom thought I was worth, was C's? And all the way through, and I got up to college, and this professor said, someday, when you have some life, when you've had some experiences, you're going to be a great writer. And then the first book I wrote was about my childhood trauma. The second book I wrote was about my child, and they were both award winners. And so he just didn't know me. If he would have known that I had all this stuff, he would have said, kid, you go ahead and write your book because you've got enough information now. But he had no idea. He had a class of 60 kids or something. But yeah, so anyway, I've just learned to follow my own little ideas.
So,
and
yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I'm curious, if you were to have a dream tonight and you ran into that younger version of you, let's say, your senior year of high school, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the life that you've lived, the wisdom you've gained, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would give my younger self to stand up for myself more and finish college and not give up my college so that my husband could finish because we just wanted to get out of school. And so, and I was getting something called lupus. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's kind of an autoimmune thing. Mm-hmm. And so I just didn't have a lot of energy. And the family thought that I should rest. Well, I should have thrown myself in my books and said, I don't care if I die in this English class, I'm going to get this degree, but I did not. I backed off. So I was way too docile. So I'm not docile anymore. I grew out of it.
So as someone that obviously has a great thirst for life and curiosity, if you could get transported in a time machine back in time and witness any event in human history, what would you love to have witnessed with your own eyes?
I often think about the age where I went to art school for a little bit. That's another one of my passions. I love to think about the age of when Picasso and all those famous artists were in Paris, and they would meet, and they say they would meet and, have beer and wine and everything, together. I would love to have been there to absorb all of that and then to see what they painted.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I love that. So of all of the things that you've done, you've lived quite a mighty existence. What are you the proudest of? What is it that you've done that you're the proudest of?
Oh, no doubt, my family. It doesn't matter what I've ever done. My family always came first. Actually, it was like one daughter. And then when she got married, she had a grandchild. So I've got 3 family members now. And I don't regret 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second of all the time that I spent with her. I didn't start writing till she was in high school because I was not going to leave her. I wanted to make sure that I was able to take her to baseball practice and to all these things that kids have to go to, after school. And I drove her. I did not let the neighbors, hey, would you take her so-and-so? I've got to work. I did not do that. And I've never regretted it because that and my grandson, there's nothing wrong with my son-in-law, by the way. He's pretty great. But my grandson needed a babysitter when he was growing up. And he had been a preemie. And my daughter couldn't afford to, they wanted $450 a month to watch him while she worked for the week. And my husband said, I'll tell you what, if you'll stay home and take care of Jacob during the week, then on the weekends you can write, do whatever you want to do, and I will cook, I will clean, I'll do the laundry, I'll mow the yard, I'll do everything that needs to be done. Well, that was the best time of my life. And I got a lot of work done on the weekends because I knew I only have this block of time. So, I have to keep at it. But my time with my grandson, we even wrote a little book together, a little story. It's I called it "There's a Mouse in the House," unfortunately, because I didn't check to see how many titles there are, how many books there are with that title. But anyway, we even wrote books. We did paintings. We went places. I had a little red car. It was a Chevy Blazer that had a back seat that was really wide. And I could put him in there, even as crippled up as I was, and take him everywhere. I took him to glass museums. He was bored to death with that. But anyway, I took him everywhere. And I enriched his. Someday he'll have a wife and he'll think, I'm sure glad I know what this is about, because otherwise, without grandma, I would have never known about plays. And he's not, he's a sporty type. He's not that type of guy. But anyway, yeah, I love my family and I love my husband. I just doted. I was crazy about that man. I'll tell you, it was just really, I was really lucky. I had one man, one family, not two or three divorces and all this stuff. I was totally focused on my family.
That's wonderful. So everyone out there has a perception of you. There's all these different people in your life. You got family, you got friends, you got all of your fans, but ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm adorable. I was thinking the other day, a lot of people in my life, I'm quiet. Normally, you wouldn't know it from this morning, but when I'm by myself, I'm very quiet. And they just think that there's not much going on in there, because I don't have a lot of comments about things, but I put my comments on paper and some of those people just don't realize that. But also problem I have, Joe, is that because I'm in a wheelchair a lot of the time, people think I'm retarded too. They think, what, and I'm not, believe me, I've been tested, I'm fine. But but that's people don't have a perception of me until I start speaking or until I write something. They really just, I'm just kind of like the little quiet person in the corner that's kind of retarded. How did she get in here anyway? What is she doing here?
So of all of your books, what's been one of the best fan letters you've ever gotten back?
Oh, I have a book. I have a series of books. I call it my Turtle Trilogy. It was my first one, Three Turtles Summer. And the second one is As Brown as I Want, the Indian Head Diaries. And the third one is Custer and His Naked Ladies. Well, As Brown as I Want, I would go to the library, it would be gone. And so I would wait and it would still be gone. And so I finally talked to somebody. I said, where's my book? Why don't you guys have my book? She said, they take it out and they don't want to give it up, so they keep it.
Wow.
So this little girl, she wrote me and she said, I got in trouble today because I was reading your book in school. And I got in trouble with the teachers. And I just want you to know how much I love your book. And I've still got that letter. I just love it.
That's wonderful. So if anyone out there wants to get your books, learn more about you, find you on Instagram, anywhere out there, where's the best place to go?
You know what? The best place to go is Amazon. Those people are so good. I have a whole little page. They can find me there, but it's www.amazon.com/author, AUTHOR, of course, /Janelle Hooper. They don't use the Meraz name. I think it's too long, so they cut it down to Janelle Hooper. And all my books will come up. And I have a WordPress and an Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. And I'm not very creative. I just use my whole name, Janelle Meraz Hooper on everything, so anybody can find me anywhere.
Excellent. Janelle, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Best of luck with everything as we move forward. I really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and I'm you've got a fan now with your show. I'm going to be watching. I'm not watching, listening, because it's this podcast thing is new to me, and I am really getting into it. So I'll be one of your listeners.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'm gonna pick up your books, and we'll be in touch. So thank you very much. Have a great holiday, and
You too.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.